Good morning, guys. Good afternoon or evening, wherever you are at. Welcome to this particular section. All right. Forgive my audio. I don't have a good microphone here. I'm recording directly with my PC's mic, so it's gonna be sounding somehow weird, but I hope you bear with me on that. All right. So this video is to explain to you about. In fact, it's actually I think it's a 4 video or a 3 video series, which I'm just going to be showing you on the post request, the put request, and the delete request, and just showing you how it is done. Since there was no time to complete this in class and you need this for your assignments, I'm doing this in videos. I'm doing this in the video section, and I'm going to upload this on YouTube, and then pretty much on YouTube, and then you're going to just have to, watch it. If I'm not able to do that, then I'll just put it directly into the WhatsApp. All right, so moving on directly to post requests. First things first, let me just give you the overview again of what we are trying to achieve in general. User makes a request, a HTTP request. That user makes a HTTP request. It goes through the URLs, and then from the URLs, for each URL, remember that for each URL, a view function is attached to this particular URL. Okay, so if you look at the URL section right here, you see that right now this URL, the URL that we created, a view is being attached to it. Okay, so remember, because we're using classes here, and each classes has methods, and methods are pretty much functions inside classes. So this function right here is actually checking for the method that matches the HTTP request method, which is right here. For this one, it's a post request. So I make a request, it says message successful, and then you could see that here you have a method called post. So it took that method value and matched it with the method name to detect, and then suddenly executed the method, that is the instructions written inside this method, which at the moment right now is just the response function, post request successful. All right, okay, so now moving on, let us get into let's continue first. So the views, right, once you make it sees that function, it actually executes the information that is written inside that function, and inside that function this serializer class is being called, where the data for the function is being passed, and then that data is converted to a data that can be stored inside the database. All right, and then the same process again. If the user is trying to retrieve an information, the request goes, gets that data, converts it into something that Python could be able to read, and then or converts it to a JSON format, and then it's being sent back to the user. At the moment now, it's kind of like translated to the JSON, and then sent to an application, maybe a front-end application, a Next.js application. So once it's sent there, then other conversions happens before the user is able to see his data. All right, so that's the process. So now we are dealing with post requests. Remember, what we are trying to do is we're going to we created this model right here, and now we want to make a request that creates data in this format and store it in the database. So we're going to be expecting a name, a description, an image, and a deadline. And I've written the instructions already in the admin section right here. So this is list, display, we have the name, description, deadline, image. Okay, for displaying the data, each and every one of these data once they are added into the database, and this is for searching for a specific data being stored inside the database using the admin section. And this is the admin section right here, and at the moment it's empty. Yeah, I've already created a super user, so that's the reason why I have access to the admin page. All right, Now, another thing also you need to take note as we're moving on is that I've actually imported multi-parser and form parser from REST framework parsers. Now, the reason why I am doing this is because of we are going to upload an image, and if you remember in our last class, we actually did connections, set up our application to be able to save static images and send back these images, save back these images to front-end applications or probably maybe mobile apps if they're actually accessing our API endpoint. And right here we have this folder right here, which is going to be responsible for storing each and every one of these, which is going to be responsible for storing those images inside of it. Okay, so I'm going to call this, I call this media. Let me call it this. Is it too late to change it? Images. All right, I don't even know if I need to make migrates and make migrations to make that work, but along the video, if that doesn't work, I'll do a migration first and then we'll see about that. And then so far our serializer, we have actually created a serializer, which is going to be the one that's going to be is the translator right now. Okay, it's going to be translating our data and doing those conversions behind the scene. Okay, so that is that. Now let us move into the request, post request. You see, we have already set this up in our last class. If you remember, if I click on this request, we're getting back what post request is what successful. So now I want to make a request and to create a new tax data, and the tax data that we have here is the name, description, image, and deadline. Now, because of this image actually is a file data, and if I want to use JSON to actually do this, I will need to get the path in my PC and will need to add that inside the image property, the image value alongside this key. But I don't want to do that. That's just kind of stressful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use form data to handle this request. So I'm also giving you another option. Not only JSON, not only sending data as JSON can also work, but also using the form data section can also work as well. But I need this because I want to use the file section. Using this file section right here will give me the ability to upload images. Like you see that, without actually grabbing the path directly. So I'm going to start creating a post data immediately right now. So we have name, and it's the value for this is a file. It's going to be a text because that's what it is. So I'll say finishing my assignment before the end of the year. All right, yeah guys, please do it. Finish your assignment. Really need to mark this assignment before the year ends. So we're not looking at 30 yet, guys. You have to do this kind of early. All right, I'll be pushing you through. If there's anything you don't understand, reach out to me in my DM and I'll be glad to respond back. All right, so the next one is the description. The description is going to, you have to finish you have to finish your assignment before the end of the year. All right, so that's description. Looking at it again. So now image. Yep. Now to upload image, it's not going to be the text field, it's going to be the file field. So I can now select a specific file I want to upload. I'm just going to copy any file right here. I'm just going to take this one, a11.png. and that's, you see that the image file is already attached here. Now the next one I'm going to write in here will be the deadline, and the deadline is going to be 2024 12th 25th. That's Christmas. We're looking at just say 30. Okay, so 12th 30 24th of December 30th. And now if I run that request, it's actually sending the data to the view section, but we have not written any instruction concerning what we want to do to this data. So let us start doing that. The aim is to save the data, take the new data and save it into the database. So for us to do that, the first thing we want to do is get the data from the request section, from this request parameter right here. So I'm going to say data is going to be equal to request, and this time there's actually a function, sorry, there's actually a property called data that stores this data in a query set format. That is the one I'm actually going to be using for this video. So I'm just gonna, it's not even for the video, for the class, guys. So let me see that, send, and yeah, look at that query date. You can see that the informations are actually in here. So I'm not using request.body. I actually did that in the previous class for you guys, but we're going to be using data, and it has the images alongside with it. All right, now this guy, there's what we call permission classes. Remember permission classes that was dealt with in settings, the one that I told you guys to comment out. All right, so the REST framework has options for granting permissions to your application. In this section, this is where you write permissions that you want to grant or execute globally. Okay, maybe like something in the future you're going to know much about this. I'm going to use this for the authentication section. So but for now I don't want to do it globally. So this is the way you do it global, and then this is where you do it, this is where you do it manual for a specific view. So this one is simply saying that I'm actually writing a permission for a specific view and not globally. All right, but this thing we are doing right here in terms of image upload, I think is a global thing, so it's kind of wise to do it from that core settings section, the REST framework list in the settings, but I'm going to do it here. So if you want to do that, you could actually find out how to do that and add that permission right there without actually adding it here. But I've added it above my, that is my functions, my methods, simply saying that I'm granting my methods permissions to upload media files, pass these media files and send them to my database. Okay, to send them through the serializer. So there's no need for me to be doing requests.files. Okay, you have not actually touched that one yet, but it will take, if I don't use this, I have to write some extra lines of code to start uploading images. So thank REST framework for making this easier. Okay, Django REST framework for making this easier. So as I pass this thing right here as an attribute, it's already active and ready to convert images into a format that can be stored inside the media file, and then for the part of that file to be stored in the database. So now what the first thing I'm going to do is this is the data, right? I'm going to call on the serializer, tag serializer, and tag serializer is going to take in that request data inside of it. Okay, I'm just gonna call this tax actually it's serializer, that's what it is, serializer. So the serializer actually is taking in the data and is actually converting it into a format that can actually be stored inside the database. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to check if it's successful. So there is this property inside this serializer called is valid. Okay, now it's valid is returns back a boolean value, two boolean values. You know, the two boolean values, true or false. So if this guy is true, if the serializer, if we actually made the post request and the post request actually saves this data, or it passes the options, the requirements, the name is the same, the description is the same, the image is the same, then just send us back that the post request was successful. But instead of just sending us back, save this thing in the database. Now, because we have connected our database to our models to the serializer has a property that can allow us to just save this data directly into the database without us using that tax model objects property. Remember, if I actually did call like tax model dot objects, you know, and then you now say objects dot create, if you remember that, right? But I'm not going to be using this since I just connected tax model into serializer is handling that already. So if the data is valid, save this data, tell us that the post request was successful. Else, if that's not the case, then tell us that it was actually unsuccessful, right? So this is the moment of truth, testing this out. Will this work? So I'm going to go to here and I'm going to click on this. Remember the endpoint. This is the endpoint, the method post request, and each and every one of these values. And I click on send, and it tells me that post request is successful. Let me be sure they actually did save this data. Refresh, and voila, there you have it. The name, the description, the deadline, which you actually did save, and then the image which was created. This is the image right now. All right. Okay, so this is actually this is React. No, Next.js. Don't bother about that. All right. So this, you can see that that's how simple you can make a post request in Django with Django REST framework. All right. So, but there are actually sections. If you want to actually, what if you want to actually write like a specific validation rule for your post request? What if you want to write, maybe you want your name not to be more than 4 characters, or you want your description not to exceed a particular um, length of characters as well, or you want to validate your images, you don't want your image size to be big, your image file size to be big. There's a section that you can use, to handle these tasks, and it's actually in the serializer, right? So I'm not going to show you step by step on how that is done, but I can just show you a previous code of mine which I did to July cohorts, showing them how that process is done. You can see that here they created an app for them, Teams, an app called Teams, which has a CRUD operations for adding teams, updating teams, deleting teams, and so on. Now in their serializer section, you can see that there is actually a method called create. So now I can come here and I can decide to do some extra things, extra information. So I want to add some extra instructions concerning what I want to do to my data. So I can use the create method to handle that. And you could see that actually here I actually did call this objects manager and actually did the creation of this data. Okay. And then, like I said, more reasons, maybe just in case you want to validate something like the image. So serializer has a section called validates. You can go there, create a function, create this method, sorry, the method in the class, function in the class, create this method, and then write instructions like the way you can see here. This could be your guide, to create to handle validation of this data. So you simply say that if the image size is maybe bigger than 2 megabytes, return back an error, say do not send this thing at all, stop it right here. However, if it actually is successful and is less than the size recommended, then just go to this create function, run the certain instructions that are written in here, and send back the data. And once that data is being sent, send back the response. All right, so you can see that right now. So that's how it is. Okay, but for this method now, this is a simpler approach without writing any validation instructions on how a post request is being made. If you have any questions, if you have anything that's going to bug you that you don't understand, feel free to reach me and then I'll explain more. All right, guys, thank you very much.